What caught my eye in your festival was when you said you wanted films that transgressed format and genre. You talked about like the nature of frontier, and I really like that. Half the time we live in Texas, which is definitely frontier, and we like to think we're making movies on frontier. And the other thing I like that you have is on your website where you say where the borderlines blur and intersect. And I think that really does describe us.
Jack and I met in graduate school when we were young. He didn't tell me that he was a poet. He had decided he wasn't ready to really write and try to publish poetry. So he switched over to the film and video department. That's where I met him. We made films together when he was young, but he didn't want to become an academic. And he left for LA and eventually became a cinematographer working out of LA and then later London, because the projects were a lot more interesting. Like 35 years later, he was the one, but he left. And he's got a common name. So it's very strange. LinkedIn sent a message to Jack saying that he might know me. LinkedIn never suggested that I might know him. And neither of us had much in the profile. So it's hard to even imagine that that happened. So, but it did. But I thought it was a cruel, like, joke of fate that it was somebody trying to sell me insurance. Until then, I got that message about this message of you might know, Jack Cochran might know you. Do you want to connect? And I thought, but the worst has already happened. Why shouldn't, what do I have to lose? So I clicked on the thing and the rest is history.
I like to think I was kind of born an outlier. I don't know.
Me too.
I just have never kind of.
But it's really social, I think. I think it's where is the experiences you have when you're young.
What's good about now is we can make the films we want. We have the camera. Actually, the way iPhones work, you only really need an iPhone now. And we can kind of come up with the projects and figure them out and do them ourselves, which is really great because we can be outliers.
We can make the films that we want to make without worrying about where the money's going to come from, because it doesn't take that much money. That gives us the freedom to tell the stories that we think are important. Small production, you can experiment and nobody can tell you no.
Yeah, no, we made pretty experimental films. That's way back. Yeah, 16 millimeter, where it was expensive to make films then, so you couldn't. I mean, the democratization of the filmmaking process is wonderful now. You just need a computer and a phone, really. But back then we had to do, we had to get a 16 millimeter camera. We had to buy the film, process it. So it was harder.
And the university had some equipment, so that was good.
Yeah.
So that's a way to get going. But
the program we were in did reward experimental filmmaking. It wasn't like a Hollywood training program.
It was the University of Iowa, the road to Hollywood. Although Jack did it, the road to Hollywood doesn't go through Iowa City, Iowa.
I mean, Cancer Alley is probably screened more than any other. I believe you screened it a couple of years ago, and it's been in over 50 festivals or 55 festivals. So it's hard to count the audience because a lot of them are virtual.
And with virtual screenings, a lot of the European festivals do kind of a dual thing. They have an in-person festival, but then afterwards or sometimes at the same time, you can get virtual tickets so that you can watch from anywhere. And that's really great because that means that you can have bigger audiences.
We've been fortunate because some of the festivals, do you know the Fotogenia Festival in Mexico City? They're one of our biggest supporters and we love them. They do get a pretty good audience there. In Buffalo in New York, most every year as well. And they have we screen in the experimental block. And when we go there, the theater is pretty well full.
You never know who you're going to impact. So it's not necessarily how big our audiences are. It's also what they take away. One of the things I like to think about is that, if we don't reach as many people as we'd like, but we might reach some young people and they might change the world.
Yeah, we don't have enough money to do some of the things we want. It's the opposite of the coin.
So we have to be inventive.
We like to work with poetry, with poets and poetry, because mixing poetic discourse, which is distilled, spoken in oral word, with images, it produces something different than you get from just a poem. And that's kind of fascinating. We just did a project where we collaborated with 4 Texas poets and made films of their poems that want to change the world.
Yeah.
We called it
activist
poems.
poetry.
We called it changing the world one poem at a time.
We've been lucky to find people that will give us opportunities. The Real Poetry Festival in Houston is one of those places. We found them in their first year, and we've been doing something with them every year. And the last couple of years, they gave us the opportunity to curate a program. We've done films on the wall. We've done films about migration, about crossing the border.
We did one on the Ukraine situation and one on the Gaza situation. They're all kind of very activist and very, very timely right now.
Not always.
Not always.
Jack wrote a poem. I think I encouraged you to do it, about our crazy romance.
My poems are mostly kind of autobiographical and essay, but the poems we pick from other people are generally activist.
We've been doing mostly activist poetry films and then some personal stuff, because the personal is political also. Now and then is interesting because one of the poetic strands is going to the South and realizing that there was segregation.
When I was 11 years old, I went to the South for the first time. I sat in the back of the bus and everybody looked at me, and I went into the wrong restroom. I just had no concept that there would be black and white restrooms.
But it's kind of interesting that one of the commonalities was that the adventurous festivals in the US South has programmed that. So they embraced that shock from a Midwest kid.
I'm grateful that they come and watch our movies, and I'm grateful that the festival programs our movies. It's wonderful.
And we're grateful to all the adventurous festivals, and yours is one, because without that, our films would not get seen. And it's also true that we're fortunate that we can reach out to places beyond our home country.